I used to assume natural vanilla meant beans. Then I read the FDA playbook. Natural can come from any edible source. Corn, rice bran, even wood derivatives, so long as the end molecule is vanillin. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today, I'll decode the terms, show you why less than a trace of vanillin in our food comes from real beans, and explain how a tiny group of flavorists keeps your cookies tasting consistent despite wild crop swings. You'll walk away knowing how to stop paying a premium for a word that doesn't mean what you think. You see natural vanilla flavor and think flowers, pods, a brown bottle of extract. The reality is far less charming. In a lot of products, corn syrup or rice bran is doing the heavy lifting while the label leans on your nostalgia. Let's be brutally honest. Your expectation is simple. Vanilla beans and alcohol pulling out aroma. The legal definition isn't interested in your expectation. It only asks that the flavor comes from an edible source. That's it. If a microbe converts a food-grade sugar into vanillin, the end result fits the rule. Not because it met a vanilla orchid, but because the starting material was edible. Here's where it gets tricky. The FDA's flavor rule lets vanillin from fermented sugars wear the word natural, even if it never touched a pod. So, a vat of bacteria can digest glucose from corn or ferulic acid from rice bran and spit out vanillin. Same molecule on paper, different origin, different process, different story. And that molecule matters. Vanillin is the core beat of vanilla, but a real extract isn't just one note. In beans, you've got hundreds of minor volatiles, floral edges, smoky hints, a whisper of rum-like warmth, layering into something with depth. Strip it down to only vanillin and you flatten the experience. It's the difference between a symphony and a metronome. Same tempo, missing the orchestra. Pulling back the curtain, most of the vanillin out there doesn't come from beans. Fewer than 0.3% of global vanillin is bean-derived. The rest is built from guaiacol, lignin, or microbes. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's the supply. Vanilla orchids are fussy and scarce. Industrial roots aren't. So the market chased yield and those roots took over. Now look at your ice cream. Natural vanilla flavor often means biovanillin spun up in a fermenter, using bacteria to turn corn glucose into vanillin. It sounds clean because fermented sounds artisanal. It's not a farmhouse crock, it's a production tank. And the carrier that delivers that flavor? It can be a synthetic solvent designed to keep the aroma stable in a cold, fatty matrix. The rule doesn't require every supporting ingredient to be natural. Only the flavoring component needs to qualify. So, what are you buying when a label flexes natural? You're paying for permission, not provenance. If natural can mean corn to vanillin, then natural vanilla flavor tells you almost nothing about orchids, pods, or extract. It signals one thing. The molecule came through an edible door, not a petrochemical one. That's a regulatory checkbox, not a flavor guarantee. What's particularly frustrating is how this plays out in your mouth. A cookie scented with pure vanillin will taste like vanilla in the loudest, most obvious way, but it shortchanges the rounder, late in the bite notes you get from a true extract. The soft wood, the dried fruit edges, the creamy finish, those are the minor players that get lost when everything rides on a single star molecule. It's efficient. It's also thin. Here's the payoff. The FDA allows natural flavor to include bacterial fermentation products from edible feedstocks like rice bran or corn. That's lawful natural, but it's not from vanilla. It fits the letter of the rule and dodges the picture in your head. And brands know exactly how that picture helps them charge more. Now let's follow the money, because this didn't happen by accident. And the people writing your flavor playbook aren't farmers with orchids. They're industrial chemists and flavor houses protecting scale and margin. If beans set the standard, why is your pantry full of lab vanilla? Because real orchids don't run on factory time. They're hand-pollinated, tied to tropical weather, and one storm can wreck a season. prices swing, supply collapses. Demand doesn't care. Your supermarket ice cream still needs to taste like vanilla next Tuesday. Manufacturers hate volatility. They need predictable inputs and repeatable flavor, batch after batch across hundreds of plants. So they outsource the problem to a tight circle of flavor architects, about a few hundred trained specialists who guard formulas like state secrets. Their mandate is simple: lock in a profile that survives cheap milk, cheap sugar, and endless shelf time. Here's the shift. Early on, vanilla extract came from beans because that's what existed. Then the paper and petrochemical industries found a cheaper route: vanillin from lignin and guaiacol. Steady supply, lower cost. Later, biotechnology gave the marketing department a gift: fermentation. Feed corn glucose or rice bran to microbes, ferment out vanillin, and stamp it natural because the starting material was edible. The orchid never enters the building. Pulling back the curtain, bean-derived vanillin barely registers in global volume. It's a rounding error. The world runs on guaiacol, lignin, and fermenters because they deliver what factories crave: price stability and scale. You don't need perfect weather in Madagascar to flavor a billion cookies when you can schedule a tanker truck. When bean prices surge, brands don't absorb it. They switch playbooks. Ice cream makers quietly reformulate to natural flavor sourced from microbes. Same bright vanilla top note, fewer warm shadows. They protect margin, keep the flavor consistent, and let the word natural do the heavy lifting with your expectations. You pay more, expecting orchards. You get tanks and trade secrets. Now the safety question. There's little evidence that synthetic versus bio-derived versus bean vanillin creates a meaningful safety gap in typical use. The divide isn't about toxicology, it's about economics and regulation. Natural becomes diet theater for flavor. Legal, yes. Informative, no. You're not buying farming. You're buying a compliance label. Let's kill the beaver myth while we're here. Castrium made cameo appearances decades ago, but it's commercially irrelevant today. It's rare, expensive, and not the backbone of anything on your shelf. The real smokescreen is the word natural, not a woodland creature. So why do almost all cookies, yogurts, and milkshakes lean on industrial roots? Because beans are fragile and finite. Factories need a calendar they can trust. Lignin, guaiacol, and fermentation supply a stream that doesn't care about cyclones or labor shortages. And once flavorists craft a mix that works across products, companies stick to it. Changing a formula risks consumer complaints, line shutdowns, and recalls. You don't gamble with your best-selling SKU. Think of it like fuel standards. Airlines don't want artisanal kerosene with character. They want identical burn every flight. Food manufacturers treat vanilla the same way. A single molecule gives them a precise ignition point. The orchestra of bean compounds sounds beautiful, but a metronome never misses a beat and beats scale. Here's the payoff. Less than a sliver, under 0.3%, of vanillin used actually comes from beans, because industrial chemistry gives cost, scale, and stability that farming can't. The natural tag gets earned through fermentation of edible feedstocks, not through an orchid. That's the system you're buying into. So how do you shop smarter and stop paying a premium for a word doing PR, not sourcing? You start by changing where your eyes go on the label and how you judge value when the flavor story sounds a little too clean. Here's the bottom line. Natural vanilla flavor often means a lab converted corn or rice bran into vanillin. Same molecule, distant farm. That's why your natural pint tastes loud up front and thin at the finish. So change how you shop. Read the panel. Look for vanilla extract or vanilla bean, high on the list. Bean specs help. Save natural flavor for products where you're not paying a premium for a story. On the flip side, some brands actually get it right. Want me to audit store labels and call who's using beans? Drop a comment with the product you want tested next.